Good. Okay. Awesome. All right, Barry. The red light's on. This is when most people get really, really nervous. How are you feeling? You okay?
Oh, sweat's pouring off.
I know it's high stress. It's high stakes over here. Doing these interviews. I kid. I kid. Well, Barry, why don't you do my listeners a favor? Introduce yourself and tell me what your project is.
Sure. Well, my name is Barry Linder, and I'm president and CEO of Eyedetec Medical. By background, I'm an electrical engineer turned physician turned ophthalmologist turned serial entrepreneur.
Talk
And
about that. How did you do all those? But yeah, continue.
so along the way, I got very interested in the problem of dry eye disease.
Hmm.
And if you're in eye care, you know all about dry eye. And even if you're not, you probably know somebody who's complained about their eyes feeling dry, they kind of hurt,
Right.
can't spend a long time. So all of this has gotten much worse over the last 10, 20 years.
Hmm.
And it all has to do with these devices. Not this one in particular, but the fact that we're all spending lots of hours looking at a screen and doing what we're doing, looking at a screen rather than in person. And what happens is blink rates, which are about 15 per minute when you're just in a normal day walking around. When you're looking at a screen concentrating, that decreases to about 5 per minute.
Hmm.
The consequences, if you think of the tears as a glass of water and they evaporate, well, the tear blink kind of keeps them from evaporating by spreading some oil on top, and that prevents evaporation. If we're not blinking, they're evaporating, we're developing dry eye. So
Interesting.
it's a big problem, and we've come up with some novel ways to deal with it.
And is that similar as like eye strain or like when your eyes get tired from looking at screens? Is it in the same ballpark or is it a different condition altogether?
It's the symptoms of dry eye disease can feel like eye strain.
Okay.
It's not necessarily identical, but
Sure.
there's overlap in
Right.
the
Right.
conditions, and yeah. So often people will say eye strain or their eyes are just tired,
Hmm.
and in the severe cases, though, it actually leads to really life impacting quality of life issues and even decreasing vision, blurred vision, fuzzy vision, just because you don't have a nice tear film covering the surface of the eyes.
Well, you
And
mentioned. Go ahead. Sorry, you're saying.
one of the other big impacts in terms of quality of life are a lot of people love contact lenses.
Yeah.
Well, you can't wear easily, safely contact lenses if you have severe dry eye disease. So it has multiple sort of prongs of impact into
Yeah.
daily living.
That would be my wife in the old contacts, and the eyes get dry, and if we're running a lot of heat in the house or the fireplace is on, and the next couple days is you know the glasses come out basically in her world,
Yep.
right? Yep, the contacts don't go in, the glasses come out. That's the solution here for her. So you mentioned kind of products, like what does that mean? I guess maybe tell my listeners, how are you solving or helping solve the issues that you're describing right now?
So I mentioned briefly the oily layer. The tear, we talk about tears, but it's actually when you start digging into it, it's fairly a complex structure.
Hmm.
And there's a balance that needs to be achieved between producing normal tears and tears evaporating. So if it's in balance, great. If it's not in
Right.
balance, you get dry eyes. Um, and the tear film itself has multiple layers that are structured slightly differently. There's mucin, there's aqueous, there's lipids, and lipids are oils. And again, back to that analogy, water in a glass, you put a drop of oil in, it spreads out a little tiny oil film on top, the water can't evaporate anymore.
Right.
And the tear film, nature has amazing ways of making things work. And our blink spreads a layer of oil over the tear film, which prevents it from evaporating. And those oils come from about 25 to 40 little glands in each of the four eyelids. And every
Hmm.
time we blink, a little tiny bit of oil comes out of those glands and spreads across the tear film. If you take everybody with dry eye disease, and there's about 44 million in the US, 1.4 billion worldwide, increasing about 9% per year.
Wow.
So a lot of people. And if you look at all that population, some aren't producing enough of the aqueous,
Hmm.
but 80 or 90% of that whole population are not creating normal natural oil layer.
Yeah.
And that's because when not blinking, not only are tears evaporating more quickly, but we're not pumping out the oils from these glands.
Hmm.
And they kind of get clogged and constipated. And our mission is finding ways to effectively get those oils to flow better. And
Right.
so we have, sorry, a series of products. The first one is a commercial product,
Okay.
and it applies heat in a very controlled manner to all of the eyelids.
Hmm.
And if you think of oil, you heat it up and it flows better.
Oh,
It
gotcha.
increases the viscosity. So it's very, it's an understandable concept.
Yeah.
I just happen to have. Can I show this?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
This
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
product.
Uh-huh.
So it is a reusable eye mask that's been engineered with thermally reflective layers and the correct amount of batting and warming wafers. And so we open up the warming wafers. These have been calibrated precisely to deliver the right therapeutic temperature. These go into the mask and you wear the mask.
Oh, nice.
This is really more for a mild problem, and it's called hygiene.
Hmm.
Um, Mild disease where simply warming up the lids once or twice a day can really help a lot of people.
Yeah.
And for the moderate to severe disease, though, this isn't in and of itself adequate. They need
Sure.
more.
Yeah.
And so the engineering part of me got together with other mechanical engineers and looked at, well, what is it about the oils that we can do to get them to flow out better?
Hmm.
And we want to be careful not to try to squeeze the lids because number one, it's not comfortable. But secondly, you can get movement in the wrong direction and further damage those glands. And so we said, let's do this in the most non invasive, most comfortable manner possible. And that's taking advantage of something called shear thinning, which happens with certain types of fluids. And the best example we're all familiar with is think of ketchup in a bottle. You're
Okay.
trying to get it to come out on a hamburger, and then you start whacking it a few times, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden it comes gushing out.
Yep.
Well, that is a non Newtonian fluid that liquefies due to shear thinning.
Hmm.
Exactly the same thing in the lids. So we have created a device, and this is not yet commercially available, called the ELM or eye lipid mobilizer. Um, I didn't go through a professional marketing team for that name, by the way.
Yeah.
um,
ELM though works. Yeah, all right, I got it. ELM.
ELM, and this is a early prototype. We have more advanced ones. This is in clinical trial. We've done one clinical trial that we put together a submission to the FDA,
Hmm.
and we're now doing some more clinical studies with it while the 510K is pending. That's the submission for this class of device.
Yeah.
And this will use both heat and this concept of vibrating in the right direction, amplitude, frequency, in order to impart a pressure wave through vibration to induce shear thinning and get those
Oh,
oils
wow.
to flow better.
That's really
So
cool.
yeah, we're very excited about this. We had incredibly compelling clinical results in the study that we did,
Mhm.
and we're very, very optimistic this is going to be a big game changer in the market. We actually have a partner in Asia Pacific region that is anxiously waiting for the product to come, and so it has a bright future.
That's cool. And is the are you envisioning that this would be something that people would use at home, or they would go to a medical professional to use it? How do you see people using this product when it comes to market?
Yeah, that's the perfect question. Thank you. So this first product, this is purely an over-the-counter, direct-to-consumer product. Some doctors do offer it in their practice, but it's primarily direct-to-consumer. The ELM is very different. That is going to be sold only through physicians,
Okay.
And it can be adjusted because you can imagine everybody's face and eye sockets are shaped slightly differently. And the key to success with this product is getting perfect conformity to the whole topography or surface of the eyelids. So a very quick adjustment is done in the doctor's office. The first treatment is performed in the doctor's office with this. It's a 15-minute treatment. But then what's unique about this is it then goes home with the patient and the
Gotcha.
patient continues to use it because dry eye, and especially this form of evaporative dry eye, is a chronic disease. And therefore, a one and done treatment in the doctor's office may be good for the doctor, but it's not so good for the patient getting the condition
Sure.
fixed.
Sure.
So there's really that. So one of the innovations, in fact, is by design making this easy enough to use that it can be readily brought home by a patient after the use. So most devices are either home-based or office-based. So
Yeah.
this is unique in that it's both.
Yep.
And then the
How do
other
you
now,
navigate? How do you navigate people's let's say inability to follow instructions sometimes, put it on wrong, mess with it? How do you guys anticipate sort of navigating that once they do leave? That person is just like everybody's using this thing a little bit different, right? And I always know that anytime in hardware, I've done a lot in hardware. That what we assume people will do. Boy, you see some weird stuff sometimes. Like, why are you wearing it backwards? Like, why did you do, just whatever it is. Like,
yeah,
how do you guys anticipate sort of navigating those challenges sometimes?
is like putting on a baseball cap backwards. You think
Yeah, yeah. Just like, what are you doing?
uh, the key is because we're going through the physician, and it's not necessarily the doctor that's going to teach the patient, but they have great staff. I mean, every doctor's office has staff who are really dedicated, work with patients all the time, and they will train the patients how to use it first. Secondly, again, by design, we've made it incredibly intuitive. I mean, it is a headset,
Yeah.
and you close your eyes, you put it on. The operating functionality of it is there's an on button,
Mhm.
and if it runs for 15 minutes, it turns off by itself. If you take it off sooner, you can press the off button.
Okay.
That's all there is for the user. So again, we worked with some human factors engineering and really focused on the adjustability in the office, but then we have this shield that goes on, and it looks just like in AR or VR,
Yeah.
headset.
Mhm.
And the shield stays on. Patients don't get in there and try to adjust things. Now, could they?
Yeah.
Yes, and some probably will, but it's incredibly safe, and it's really hard to do any harm.
Yeah.
So we're not concerned about that. Now, version one is what I've just described.
Mhm.
We have a plan, version two, which will have Bluetooth on internally to communicate with an app which will monitor compliance.
Oh, nice.
So then we'll know if it's minimally, at least is it being turned on and used, or it's being turned on. The app won't know is it physically on the head or not,
Right,
but
but yeah.
it's a step in the right direction to enhancing compliance.
Yeah.
And that'll be the next version down the road.
And will there be any capturing of any data that sends back to doctors of like, hey, I told you to do it 6 times. You did it one, like will there be any capturing of data in your product?
Oh, not this version one.
Yeah, but
Again, version two, once it's communicating with an app, there's all sorts of metadata that we will be collecting. So it's the use data, but then it's, well, when was it used? Morning or night? How
yeah,
often was it used?
right.
Did it stay on the whole 15 minutes? And then the metadata is, well, what's the weather? Where are they? Are they in a
Sure.
desert, or are they in Florida? Things like that. What's the temperature? What's the index of pollution in the air at that
Right.
time? And then there are very standardized, validated dry eye questionnaires used in the industry that
Mhm.
everyone accepts. And those will be built into the app too. And patients encouraged to fill in their symptoms maybe once a week. And so then we'll have that whole data set that will then summarize and provide for the doctor. And if they
Yeah.
can see, patients getting worse, they can call the patient back in and try to figure out what's going on. Is it not being used right, or is the disease itself getting worse for some reason?
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, that man seems like there's a lot that can happen in that when that once that if that data starts coming in through the app, just all kinds of possibilities start to open up there. How do you see sort of like the insurance world working in this, for your product?
Yeah, that's a whole nother area to tackle. And most dry eye technologies actually start out as patient direct self pay.
Mm,
So, the visit to the eye doctor, that's however insurance is
right.
reimbursing now. The treatment and is usually self pay in the doctor's office, and then the purchase of the device will be as well.
Okay.
We haven't, there's definite paths to pursue to look at third party reimbursement. We haven't
Mm,
gotten there yet.
yeah. Yeah. It seems like that's probably another
Now,
undertaking.
the differentiation of this product, though, the way we designed it, cost points and targeted price points are significantly lower than current technologies. So we're bringing advanced technology that's never been used, this concept of shear thinning, but
Mm,
we're doing it at a price point that we think will be extremely competitive in the
yeah.
market compared to any of the other devices that are based in the doctor's office.
Sure. And do you envision that, um, again, just in your roadmap here of getting into like the Walmart visions, the CVS, the Costco, like these types of vision? Would it be something like that, or would it always only be like doctors' offices or that type of
Now,
world?
do you have a phone number I can call? I'd love to get in there.
Uh, I'm
Um, yeah,
thinking,
no. So, all joking aside, definitely any eye care establishment, it's where the patients are. We really want to
right?
make it convenient. So,
Yeah,
and patients don't like the idea of having to go to an eye doctor very much,
sure.
I suppose. So, no, I mean, if they're shopping at Walmart and there's a vision center there and they can go in and have their eyes tested and see do they in fact have dry eyes,
Hmm.
and if they do, is it a lipid problem, backward dry eye? And if so, here's your first treatment, and then you can buy this and take it home.
Hmm.
Yes, we will explore multiple avenues like
Yeah.
that, and as long as there's a professional at the end that does that quick fitting to the face and explanation. So I think that's the other thing. At some levels, dry eye sounds pretty simple, but it is a complex disease, and we have to be sure that it's not something else masquerading with those same symptoms. So we do want a patient to be seen, proper diagnosis, proper training, put the shield on, keep your fingers out of it, just hit the on
Hmm.
button and use it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so on the hardware side of this equation, where do you see kind of the ups and downs of getting this product made? This version one we're talking about right now, not version two, but this version one. What are some of the things that you're working on right now? Headaches, ups and downs to actually get this product produced, manufactured. Like, where are you kind of in that stage right now?
Yeah, funny you say headaches. I do experience those with this.
They pop up a little
Um,
bit here and there. Yeah,
yeah, you must understand manufacturing.
I do.
Um, so this is considered a class two medical device,
Okay,
and
I was wondering about
so
that.
the structure of documentation, quality systems is very structured around who can make this,
Hmm.
and so we have a short list of contract manufacturers that we're looking to work with,
Okay.
and they're geographically, most of these contract manufacturers have assembly either in the US or some other Western country, and then some of the manufacturing is done elsewhere, lower cost environments. And so we're talking with, our short list is down to about two or three right now, contract manufacturers, some in the US, some in Singapore, and we'll be deciding on the location soon. And the next step is really taking what we have and doing design for manufacturability and
Hmm.
enhanced quality and lower cost of goods.
Gotcha. And right now, are you fundraising for just this portion of it? Are you fundraising for for the headset, the version one headset?
Yes, yeah. So I mean, the funds are coming into the company, but
Sure.
the company's needs are for getting this product into the market. And so the fundraising we're doing is for that. We have some revenue coming from the first product, the iGene product, but we're very much of more of an R&D oriented company, not a commercialization company. So we really seek commercialization partners to take the product to the market. But fortunately, we have some revenue coming in. However, we need a bump in capital to rapidly take this product upon FDA clearance and get it into the market later this year.
Yeah, I was wondering about FDA on this. How are you guys, maybe you can help some of our other founders that are listening to this on route. Just what is that process of navigating the FDA for something like this? I mean, just how do you kind of keep going back and forth? What does that look like for you right now?
Yeah, well, the goal is to not go back and forth very much.
Right. Yeah.
So, number one, get a really good regulatory advisor.
Yeah. Mm.
And number two is, along with the regulatory, very regulated, compliance oriented document control.
Mm.
So, as a medical device, we need to have a certain level of document control, quality systems in place, and you need a document control expert to help with that. Now, as an early stage company, you don't necessarily need those resources full time unless you have enough capital and you can afford it. It would be nice to have. So, regulatory expert, figure out for the device what the classification is going to be.
Okay.
Sometimes that may require an interaction with FDA to confirm. Most most of the time, you can kind of figure that out with an expert who's experienced. And so, like I said, this is a class 2. There's a 510K route. There's PMA routes for more invasive heart
Hmm.
devices and that get implanted. Those would be much higher level of compliance requirements and such. So we've determined it to be a 510K class 2, and we've identified what's called a predicate device, which has enough similarity to say, this one is in the market. We have similarities here, here, and here, and we have shown it's safe and effective,
Cool.
and put all that together in a 700-page submission, which again is why you need good document control and a regulatory expert. And then the submission goes through a couple different stages. There's a administrative review, which is simply that it's, did you get all the sections submitted correctly? And
Gotcha.
then there can often be a set of questions or clarifications that are required to respond to. Then it goes into a substantive review, where the reviewer at the FDA really goes through all the details, not just that you got it all in there, but what exactly did you say and what were the results and have you done all the safety testing?
Hmm.
And it's a long list.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but that's why I say ideally you don't want to have a lot of back and forth,
Right.
because at that point you'd love to just hear you get the 510K clearance and you're good to go.
Yeah. I saw, kind of researching you, got a really strong team. It looks like good backgrounds with lots of advisors around you. What was your process or steps of putting this team together to get you to where you are right now? Like, it seems like you've done a really good job of putting those people together.
Thanks. Yes, that's actually something quite proud of, and it's just been such a pleasure to work with key opinion leaders who have been around the block a lot
Hmm.
and are great, terrifically respected in the field. Um, I would say, in my case, it's been very helpful that I am an ophthalmologist.
Hmm.
So I understand very well what it's like day in and day out being in the clinic,
Right.
in an eye care clinic, and have been at conferences my whole career where I've met many of these individuals, and so that made it easier in some ways to put that advisory team together of our
Mhm.
scientific advisory board, which again, these are among the top dry eye experts in the country.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd say in general, the process would still be the same. I mean, if you're interested in a space, you need to go to conferences and start hearing, the discussion, the scientific discussion, what people are saying, what they're concerned about, and you can see who's on the podium.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go to every conference because you can
Sure.
look up and see who's speaking at those
Right.
conferences.
Right. Yeah.
And then you either need someone to help open the door to get an introduction, or today with LinkedIn and any other number of social media tools,
Hmm.
getting a hold of somebody who finally, if your message is intriguing enough, hey, we have the next best thing to solve XYZ.
Right.
And I mean, you have to have a tantalizing message to get the attention, because you can be assured you're not the only one knocking on their door. But so you need to rise above the noise, if you will, and get someone's attention, and then explain, what your technology is. You're putting together an advisory board, and
Right.
so we've been really fortunate. And one of the other key things here in eye care is we really have a huge group of optometrists and a less huge group of ophthalmologists
Mm.
who take care of dry eye disease. And so I felt at the very beginning it was critical that we include both optometry and ophthalmology on our advisory team, and we've done that. We
That's good.
have,
Yeah.
again, some of the top dry eye experts from both fields. And more, I think there's very close collaboration between these professions in my space.
Right.
But whatever device one might be developing, you have to really understand who delivers the care
Mm.
and be sure that you're addressing the whole range of caregivers.
Sure, sure. So I noticed too that you've a pretty long track record of getting patents awarded. It looks, I don't know, 8 to 10 of them. I think I saw at some point. Where are you right now in this stage of securing patents and kind of locking up the ideas right now?
Yeah, so we have a lot of patents filed.
Hmm.
We have continuations filed, divisionals filed, and we have some that are issued, some that are undergoing office actions that we're responding to. We're actually right in the midst of resubmitting or submitting responses to a recent office action. So there, the part of the team that you need is a good patent um, a counsel,
Yeah.
ideally one that you can afford, because
Hmm.
it's not for the faint of heart. It, it, there's a lot of expenses both in getting the patent written and submitted, and then the follow-ons.
Yeah.
I would say if an ideal member of the internal team, which we also have, is someone who has a lot of patents under their belt, who have actually written the first drafts of the patents, because you can save literally tens of thousands of dollars if you're not having your patent attorney draft it from, starting with a blank page, but
Yeah.
actually just editing what someone who is good at writing patents on the team has submitted to the attorney. So
Yeah.
there's ways to try to control those costs, but that's still a very, very expensive part of the overall equation.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So right now, what's keeping you up at night? What is the number one thing that you're like, we need this to happen for that to happen, right? Like what's that thing that's just kind of always gnawing at you?
Um, well, the whole bus stops if it doesn't have fuel in the tank.
Yeah.
So I would have to say number one is getting the right capital to make sure that we don't have to slow down in any way.
Yeah.
And then getting responses to the FDA and getting the 510K clearance is certainly the next big
Hmm.
challenge that I want to be sure that we keep our eye on and succeed at.
Yeah.
Um, After that, choosing a contract manufacturer, like I said, we've sort of narrowed down the selection. That doesn't really keep me up. I look at it more as an opportunity. I'm excited to kind of
Right.
finalize and then take this through a manufacturability assessment and ensure the best quality we can. And
Yeah.
then talking to commercialization partners. I mean, we're prepared with the proper capital to go alone if we need to into the market after we have our 510K. And we will do that in starting in select geographies and then grow as demand grows. And then finding commercialization partner, though, will happen along the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's capital is number one, and getting the 510K done.
Yeah. How much in your world will change with countries, regions, just geographical locations, right? Like, I'm assuming at some point you want this product to be global, right? Or everybody's using it, right? If that has dry eyes, how do you kind of navigate in your roadmap being in the UK, being in Canada? What starts to change for you guys when you get into those fields?
Um, well, there's always a regulatory piece.
Yeah.
Every country has their own regulatory requirements. The UK is different than the EU now, and the EU is different than it used to be. They went from an NDD to
Mm,
an MDR.
mm,
So it's always a moving target in terms of
yeah.
regulatory. That's probably the biggest challenge. Um, we actually have in place for the iGene product two international large distributors, one throughout the Middle East and one in Asia Pacific, which
Mm,
covers Greater China, South Korea, ASEAN countries. We have interest in Japan, we have interest in the UK. So, yeah, the navigation is solely, or the challenge of that navigation is solely regulatory and compliance
mm,
for each of the territories, but finding a really good distributor, either country specific or regional,
yeah.
is something that happens again at many of these conferences. Seeing who's there speaking, who's there distributing or exhibiting, and starting conversations. And of course, networking in the industry and finding who are the best. I mean, you mentioned UK. I was having a conversation yesterday with a potential partner there. So one needs to be successful in the US and not take one's eyes off the US. That
Right.
is still the big market.
Hmm.
But there's many other big markets
Yeah.
in the world, and to be either proactive going after them or opportunistic if some opportunity arises. Keeping one's options open is the way to go.
Yeah. Does age affect dry eyes? Like the older you're getting, your eyes get more dry. Is there a sort of a bell curve to that?
Yeah, great question. In fact, it used to be a disease almost exclusively of folks at least over 60.
Okay.
And it just kind of kept going up, and more women than men.
Hmm.
Um, that has changed. So it's still prominent in as we get older, but the 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds are being diagnosed with classical dry eye disease, back to what we started with, because that's the group that's actually spending more time
I'm a-
on digital screens than even the older group. So
Right.
we're not quite equalizing across ages yet, but the younger age, that part of the curve is coming up in terms of incidence of dry eye disease, unfortunately. But it has been interesting to watch over the last 20 years. There's really a shift. And that tells us that dry eye disease is not just purely genetic or, something that the, what we do, the environment in terms of our visual environment, we're
Right.
looking at screens all day, we're looking at phones all day. That does have an impact.
Yeah. So I guess now with that in mind, I'm putting the marketing hat on. How do you guys sort of anticipate going to market with this? Is it a direct to consumer play to some degree? Is it awareness, just having the doctors or the the offices kind of sell your product? How do you kind of approach marketing now that it's kind of growing to a 20-year-old to a 6-year-old? Right now, all of a sudden your net's getting pretty wide here. Where if it was like it's almost everybody over 60 and women, all right, there's a marketing plan for that, right? You know what I mean? But so how do you guys start to anticipate, getting this into the market?
Yeah. So as an early stage company, our marketing budget is
Zero?
not infinite.
Yeah.
So we're not doing any Super Bowl ads.
Sure.
But if you look at big pharma, how many ads on TV do you see for drugs that prescription drugs for even rare diseases, and I mean, it just goes on and on. They have unlimited budgets, it seems.
Yep. Yeah.
For a company like us, medical device, early stage, part of the benefit of this product, the ELM, going through a doctor's office is that it's a limited universe that we need to approach. And not all ophthalmologists or optometrists actually are interested in dry eye disease
Mhm.
treatment. And so we can further refine the set. It's like 40,000 optometrists, 20,000 ophthalmologists in general in the US.
Mhm.
And so we will market specifically to that professional group and somewhat of a subset of those that are interested in treating dry eye disease. Ultimately, certainly social media, doing the kind of things we're doing, will build awareness. We would love to get to the point where patients know about the ELM before they get to the doctor's office and say, by the way, do you offer ELM? I mean, that kind of
Right.
marketing
Yeah.
is
Yep.
aspirational at this point.
Mhm.
That's not where we're starting for sure.
Yeah.
So it'll be very much at the professional conferences, the trade shows, exhibiting
Mhm.
um, at those shows, at the conferences, will
Mhm.
be that's the starting point.
Yeah, yeah. No, it makes sense. I would yeah, definitely make sense. I could see this. You need the doctors to almost be your affiliates, right? Or them championing it, or at least mentioning it, and then probably in your world, I could see it almost just awareness campaigns, just people thinking that there's a solution for whatever they're feeling with their eyes, right? Like, oh, I didn't
Yeah,
think about this. It's I just went to CVS and got some Visine, like you go, oh no, there's another solution here. You know what I mean? So just getting that
yeah.
sort of awareness and education out there in the world, I could see being a thing.
Yes, no, you're 100% right. Because, I mean, the natural thing is it's almost a misnomer. If you notice, when I talk about evaporative dry eye, we're not saying there's too few tears. There's
Mhm.
actually a normal amount of tears. It's just the configuration of that tear film, the layers, the lipid layer is not normal. And so using an artificial teardrop seems like it makes sense. And someone in marketing along the way, I'm sure, thought, oh, dry eye, let's call it dry eye, and then we'll sell tears. It's a little cynical, maybe,
Sure.
um,
Yeah.
but we're getting at the root cause,
Yeah.
this abnormal lipid layer for 80 to 90% of everyone with this problem. So there is an education that needs to happen along the way, and we will reach out in the best ways we can. Also, for the physician side of things, um, there's high expenses to run a physician office. I mean, there's just the people and then compliance and on and on. And so part of our design is also to ensure that this is something that helps benefit the doctor. I mean, they have to put a fair amount of time in education to
Mhm.
explain all this. So they need to be fairly compensated as well. And so in
Yep.
terms of price points and all that, that was also part of the considerations going into the design of
Sure.
this technology.
Sure. Sure. Well, I know we've kind of danced around a little bit, but walk me through the next 12 months. Hey, we want this milestone to happen, that milestone to happen, and this milestone. What does that look like?
So next 12 months, first thing, I come back to capital.
Hmm.
And we're launching a campaign on Start Engine to raise capital. With that in place, and there's other conversations going on as well from investors. The next big milestone is the 510K clearance from the FDA. With that, we then launch the product, and in parallel, we have fixed our contract manufacturer. So
Hmm.
we get products and we start doing a limited launch in the US in a few markets where we can show market traction, um, iron out any bugs that may pop up that we're not thinking of yet.
Are there
And
certain regions that, like, when you mention those areas, just real quick, like, what are you thinking, like an Arizona or a Florida? Is there something that in your mind you're like, no, 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 they have a higher case of dry eye here, or is it that strategic, or is it more who you might be connected with that you can kind of lean on, maybe people in your industry, to help?
it's going to be a combination of both. I mean, it has to, we have to have good connections in the territory. We have to have sales reps who are experienced who go into the doctor's offices, and they're not everywhere and that are
Right.
available. And
Yep.
so so we'll target a few locations and then see who we know and who's available, and we're only talking probably 3 to 5 initially.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, so we'll do that, and then start to build volume, and then look internationally with the relationships that we already have.
Hmm.
and getting the device moving internationally as well.
Cool. And then do you envision yourself, maybe not in this next year, but pretty soon here, like doing like a conference tour? I put it in quotations, but you kind of going out and speaking at a lot of these things, or being maybe a figure at a lot of conferences?
Definitely at some.
Yeah.
Better than me talking about it will be doctors who are using it and seeing positive
Sure.
results talking about it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's actually my preference.
Right. Yeah.
And that's actually already happened. One of our advisors who's had some personal experience using it has seen amazing results, and he was at a podium and talking about it. And so that's the kind of thing where I really want as many of the physicians that are using it and seeing positive results in their patients to be the ones saying this is the best thing since sliced bread.
That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Well, I know we're getting close to running out of time here. Why don't you tell my listeners, if they want to get involved, they want to learn more, where should we send them? Where do you want them to go? How do they learn more?
A couple ways. So first, go to our current live campaign on Start Engine. So it's the word startengine.com. Top left corner of that landing page, there's a search bar. Type in Eyedetec,
Cool.
Eyedetec, and then
Awesome.
go there. Also, our own website has a lot of good information on it, www.eyedetec.com. And we have a separate site for the first commercial product, iGene, which is EYEGIENE. Those are probably the three places to go and get a lot of information quickly about it.
Awesome. Awesome. And
And
I'll
and
put,
of course,
yeah.
there's ways to contact me on there personally, and if I'm open to having conversations with anybody who has questions, suggestions, ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll put everything just so you guys know, our audience. If you missed any of that, if you go to the show notes, we'll have links that you guys can hyperlink out and get to. I'm going to ask two more questions and then we're done because I know you got a hard stop here. What are you watching on TV right now? What's on the old Netflix, the Hulu's? What are you watching right now? What's your fancy?
Well, late at night, if I can't sleep, I
Yeah.
watch Louder Milk.
I am watching that
That's
right
it.
now. We're
Really?
on episode 6. I know I didn't know what we were getting into. It's a nice watch. Yeah.
So that one. But typically, I try to find some science fiction.
Okay.
Star Wars, Star Trek kind of fan,
Okay.
and anything that spins off from those, I like.
Nice.
I'm anxious to go see Dune in the theater.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
rewatched the first Dune, or it's not the very first, but the recent Dune.
Yep.
So I'm anxious to see that.
Awesome. How about podcasts you listen to? What do you listen to typically? If you listen to them.
Usually, I don't have enough time to really listen to them. If I'm driving in the car, I maybe just listen to some music on Spotify rather than
Well, what do you
podcasts.
listen to? What's the favorite type of music?
The Kinks.
Oh,
I'm
very nice.
old school, classic rock and roll, but the Kinks were always
Nice.
my number one go to.
Nice. Nice. Yes, that's a good band. It's and then how about books? You read anything? You reading any books right now?
I wish I could say I am, but no.
Funny how many people answer that question the exact same way. I'm not reading books. I'm watching this TV shows and I'm doing all this, but no more books. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Balancing time is the important thing between personal life and the business and all those things we talked about. All of them take time.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Well,
So
like I
you
said,
better enjoy the startup. If you get involved in something, it better be something that you really are passionate about and enjoy.
oh yeah, that is. I can say everything I've worked on. My 4 or 5 companies at this point in my life. I'm in it, man. I love it. So, well, Barry, I appreciate taking time out of your day. I know you got a busy schedule. Like I said, everybody, I got the show. Go to the show notes if you want to click on some links. Go support the campaign. Really cool stuff here. I love what you guys are doing, and I think you're going to help a lot of people. So, Barry, again, appreciate taking time out of your day.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, bye bye.